Hello everyone. Hi and welcome to the Acusera 24/7 webinar. Just to introduce myself. So my name is Adam Newbury McCullum. So my role is Sales Training Team Lead. This means that I'm actually a little bit of a specialist in today's subject of choice, which is Acusera 24/7. So what I'm going to be covering today is the software itself, generally, what the features are, how they can be used. I'm also going to touch on some of the new features that have come about recently. And what I would like to say is that if you do have any questions, please do hold them towards the end. I will try to reserve a little bit of time towards the end. If anybody has any questions, I can answer them. But yeah, I'm going to share my screen and then we'll get started. Okay, so today I'm going to be using the demo account. So if you were to access Acusera 24/7, it is accessed exactly how you would access any kind of website. It is a live cloud-based software. What this means is you access it the same way you would access Instagram, Facebook, anything at all, simply by going to the website. Whenever you do get there, you'll be brought to a homepage. That homepage will look like this. So each person will get a username and a login. This means that you can have one account with 20, 30, 50 staff, as many as you need, and they'll all get their own login details. From here, they would log in and they would then gain access to their account. Now, today, what I'm going to be using is the demo account. It is exactly the same in many ways, except it is not connected to our peer group. So as it is a live cloud-based peer group reporting software, this means that whenever we enter results, those results are going to influence our statistics. So our standard deviation, our CV, amongst other statistics like bias, sigma score, and total error, which I will show as we go through the webinar. But it also means that it influences our peer group statistics. Our peer group statistics are uniquely uploaded live as well, which means then this is why I have to use a demo account, because you don't want any of the results that I am entering to have an influence on the peer group statistics. So whenever we first log in, we'll be brought to a page just like this. And the home page will automatically have this view showing all of the tests that we run in our lab. Okay, so this highlight in orange is telling us that we're looking at our QC test. Now, each row will indicate one test in 24/7, and I quickly want to break down what actually is a test. So a test is made up of three things in Acusera 24/7. We have our assay, which is our analyte, our method, our unit, and the reagents that we use. So whether or not it comes from Randox or comes from your instrument manufacturer, whoever it might be, that will then be part of your assay. The second part of a test is the instrument, and the third part is your lots. The reason that I'm explaining this is because this allows us to compare instruments that run the same assays and also instruments that run the same lots. So we can have a good like-for-like comparison where we can see if there is any issues with specific instruments or with specific assays. Just to kind of go over a little bit more of the navigational features for those of you that are new to the software. On the left and the right-hand side, we have these orange bars. These are navigation panes for the software, and what you'll find on these orange bars are these icons. So we have our configuration icon. This is where we can configure everything within the software. I will jump into a couple of these different menus today. We have our custom menu. The custom menu is where we can add in anything that we want into the software. So custom lots, custom temperatures, instruments, total allowable errors, anything you want. The whole purpose of 24/7 is to meet all labs' needs. And we know that not all labs are exactly the same. Each lab is going to be using different instruments, and this software is supposed to be used all around the world. So that is why we allow for customization. We then have our reports, which I will show a little bit more detail later on. We have our import function. So I like to stop here for a little moment just to explain that with 24/7, you have multiple data entry options of how you get your QC results into the software. So we have manual, where we're simply typing it in. We have semi-automatic, where you're taking a data file of results that is then uploading those results into the software all in one go, simply by clicking on EDI configuration, then clicking on select file, and then you would upload your results. There is no limit to how many results you upload at a time. You can upload 5, you can upload 10,000. It's up to you. And then finally, that brings me on to our third data entry option, and that is our automatic data entry, also known as Acusera Connect. So that uses the exact same features, but it allows for automatic data upload, where it involves your LIS/LIMS or your middleware that you have in your lab, and we have an automatic upload schedule done in the lab. So it means you would never have to manually type in results or anything like that. And once it's set up, you don't have to have anything to do with it anymore. Okay, then we have our QC review section. I'll be highlighting some points on here later on as well. We have a help section with a user guide and contact details. And then we have our user section. And this shows preferences for the account. I will maybe, if I get time, touch on this later. We have our utilities. So this is for scheduling targets as well. We can get Acusera 24/7 can actually schedule the targets for you based on your results. So it can take your means for, say, the last month of a test and say, okay, I'm going to schedule a target based on that, calculate your mean for you for your assays, calculate your standard deviation ranges, and set them automatically for you. So it takes all the time out from you having to do that manually using Excel or trying to calculate it yourself. Then we have our charts, our manual data entry, and our preview window, which I will show in a little bit more detail in just a moment. So if we go back to our home page, before I move on, I show us charts and the meat of this webinar, I'm going to quickly touch on how this homepage should be used. So if I want to create a chart, what I would do is I select the tests here that I want to create my charts for. Now, if you're a lab with 50, 100 tests, maybe more, and you've several instruments, this list is going to be very long. So what we actually advise is that our customers do this. They create a QC panel. So in that QC panel, this is a grouping of tests. This means that you could have it grouped by immunoassay, by instrument, by the person who runs the test. If you have a specific individual in your lab that runs specific tests in the lab, they can have their own panel. And it's simple, just like everything else in 24/7. The whole point of it is to increase the efficiency in the lab. So if I wanted to create a new one, I click New QC Panel. I choose what tests I want. So let's say I want it to be my clinical chemistry tests. I can then filter, create my panel, and now I have that option. So instead of me going through my QC test page, picking everything, I just click the panel, and that selects every test in that panel. And I can see those at any time by opening our menu. Okay. What we're going to look at then is our charts. So I'm going to pick up a few different analytes, and we're going to create our charts. So to create a chart, we go to the right-hand side and we click on charts. Now, what you're going to see here is a few different options. They are very straightforward, and we use the same kind of concept as to how we create charts and reports throughout the software. So once you know how to do it once, you know how to do it across the entire software. So we're going to choose a date range, and we're actually going to stick with March to April here. Then we have an option of 4 charts. We have our Levy-Jennings, we have our histograms, we have our performance summary, which is our peer group comparison chart, and our weekly means chart. I'm going to focus mainly on the Levy-Jennings and the bottom 2 charts as well. We're going to ignore all these options first, and we're going to click the enter button. This will then create our charts. Once we have generated our charts, we will get an individual chart for each lot for each assay. So CA125 using eClear. For this instrument, this is the name of our instrument. It is the Cobus E411, and the reagents is Randox Labs. Now, on that chart, we're going to get a lot of information. But before that, I want to mention that we had picked 3 tests. So what about those other 3 tests? Well, if I scroll down, I'll get my second lot level for that test, my third, and if I scroll down again, I'll then get the same assay, same lot, different instrument, a completely different instrument. If I continue to scroll, I'll get my other lots, and then I'll also get TSH. Now, as you can see, there's quite a lot of color going on with our charts. Throughout 24/7, we use color coding. Green is used for accepted results. Yellow is used for alerted or warnings towards results. And red is used for rejected. Each dot on the chart is going to highlight an individual result, and whenever we hover over that, we'll find out information on the result, such as when it occurred, what was the value, and what was its SDI, i.e. its standard deviation index. This is just a measure of how far that result deviates from the target mean in terms of standard deviation units. Now, if we were to look at this chart, for example, we can see that from the 24th of March, we're getting quite a consistent negative bias, okay? And although some of our results are already being alerted based on our multi-rules and based on our performance limits, what we might want to do is evaluate and look for that bias on a more regular basis. We might want to know if a bias is occurring. So how are we going to do that? Well, we can update and change those multi-rules and those performance limits. To do that, we go to configuration and multi-rules. This will then bring up the default page of all the multi-rules that Randox provides to all of our Acusera 24/7 customers. Everybody will get these multi-rules automatically. And the reason that we supply these is because we find that these are the most commonly used rules across the world. So we have our multi-rule on the left. It will then tell us what that multi-rule actually stands for. So it's one result outside 2 standard deviations. And we can set whether or not that causes an alert or a rejection. So I'm going to keep this kind of standard. We'll set an alert for a 12S. We'll reject any results beyond 3 standard deviations from our targets. But what about that bias that I had mentioned? If I want to add on a rule for a bias, we do have a 10x rule here. We also have our 4 and 3.1s. So what I might want to look at is creating my own rule. What if I say, you know what, I want to know before 10 results are on one side of the mean. I want to know if that's happening before I get 10 results. So what I can do is actually create my own custom multi-rule. So to do this, we click Add New, and we're going to create one. If I go to ID, I choose NX because that's going to be my bias rule. And I'm going to choose 7, then click Enter. Save my rule. And if I increase my items per page, I'll then see that new custom multi-rule that I just made. So let's set up our multi-rules, and we'll have an alert for whenever we have 7 rules on one side of the mean consecutively. If it has worked, we'll get a success bar. And when we go and look at our charts, recreate these again, now we can see bias. Now 24/7 is automatically highlighting to us when we have a bias at play. And if I hover over my data point on an alerted result, it will tell me why that result has been alerted. In this case, it is because n results same side of the mean, i.e. the custom multi-rule that I just applied. Now, I know some people might look at this and think, whoa, that's quite scary. That's a lot of alerts. So this could be some false rejections. We could be being too strict here. So what we could do is we can always go back, reset our multi-rules. and it's back to the view that we had before. Now, because 24/7 is automatically accepting, alerting, and rejecting results based on what you want in your lab, so you decide this, what you would be expected from your auditors and your inspectors is that you are noting this and you're aware of this. The best way to do that is through comments and notation. So you'll notice here that some of our results are indicated with the triangle. If you have a triangle, this means that a comment has been applied on a result. So if we take this result, for example, it has been alerted because of a RICS performance limit, a total allowable error limit. If I wanted to leave a comment, I click on this and I can leave a comment. Now, I'm able to see standard comments and review comments because I am an admin user. I'm a manager in this account. If I was a lab analyst, I would only see the comment section. So we can actually lock down what each user is able to do in the software. So you have traceability and full control over what each person can do. So I'm going to add in a comment. Click save. And then this will update. If I refresh my page. With that comment. So anybody else who was making the Levy-Jennings chart at that time, if they're looking at the result history, they'll see that comment. Similarly, if you're a supervisor, you can add in a supervisor comment. All right, reviewed, and we have our supervisor comment. So what else can we do with our Levy-Jennings that's going to help you in your lab every day? Well, one of the things that you'll note here is that we have these bright red lines and these dark red lines on our chart. The bright red line has a title, in this case, of annual service. This is what we would call an instrument event line. An instrument event line allows for you to see anything that's happened to that instrument. In this case, the Cobus E411. So this could be a preventative maintenance, it could be an annual service, it could be a part change, anything at all. And that means that you can quickly see if we have any kind of shift in our results following that event, we know why. Instead of you spending hours trying to find out what is the reason for our shift in our QC, you can use the Levy-Jennings charts on 24/7, see that instrument event line and know, okay, well, that's where we need to start first. That's what we need to look at as to what might be the reason. Now, if I scroll down, you'll see that this is not on our other test by CA125. So different instrument, that instrument event line is not there, but it is on all the other lots for this assay. One thing that is present on both instruments charts for CA125 is this dark red line. That is an assay event line. So any instruments that are running the same assay, whenever we create this event line for the likes of changing a reagent lot, that will apply to every instrument at a time. So that is why if I scroll down, I'll get that on all of this test charts, and I'll also get it for this instrument because we have changed the lot of reagent for CA125 on both instruments at the same time. Once again, helping you detect for any shifts or any trends following a lot change. This is something that is stated in ISO 15189, where you must show that you're able to detect any kind of shifts following a reagent lot change. This is a really good way of doing that. Now, the very last event I want to speak about is seen on our TSH here. So our TSH test ran by the E411 has a blue line. So the blue line is a new function that we've added, and that is our QC test event. That means that the event is specific to just this instrument, the E411, just these lots, so 1304EC, 1305, and 1306, and this specific assay, TSH, CLIA, using Roche reagents. Now, in practicality, what this means is that if you have 2 or 3 instruments in your lab and you change reagent lot for one instrument, but not the other in your lab, then you add this as a QC test event. This means it's only going to be seen on this chart. These are really simple. They're really easy to make. I'll show you the instrument events now. If you go to configuration and instrument, we find our instrument, let's say the E411. It will give us a history of all the events with that instrument. And this is very good, not just for your Levy-Jennings, but it means then that you have a record of all your maintenance and all your service on your QC management software with 24/7. They're created very simply by clicking Create Event, giving it a title, which is the name you've seen beside the red line, when it occurred, the date and time there, and a description. So if I were to write in PM, we'll choose when that occurred. So we'll set it in the 26th of April. Click Save. That's my event created. I can go back and delete this. I can also edit it as well. All of that can be done. So if I return back to our charts, and I'm going to continue with our Levy-Jennings, there's a few other functions to show very quickly. So with our Levy-Jennings, we have the ability to apply a means line and remove our values. And what is useful about this is that all of these charts are downloadable and printable. So we have two ways of downloading them. We have portrait and we have landscape. If I click on the landscape button, this will then show each individual chart based on how I have made it look on the software. So we have the date range there. So what dates are we actually looking at our data from? So it's from the 1st of March to the 30th of April. We'll then have each individual chart with how we made it look. So I chose a means line in this case, when it was printed out, and the ability to sign it off. If I scroll down with our second chart, we are not just looking at it with a means line, but in fact, we're seeing it with individual values. So again, it's based on how you want that chart to look, is then going to reflect on how you download it. If you want to save this, all we do is change this to save as PDF. And that means you can email this to the relevant people. It means then you can save it for your own records as well. Or you can print it out and bring it along with you to your meetings. Now, a couple other buttons that we have up here. Let's imagine I don't want to see those events. This is my show and hide for my instrument event, show and hide for my assay event, show and hide for my QC test event. Similarly, if I wanted to look at only specific lots, that is what these buttons are for. I can show and hide my lot 1 charts, my lot 2, and my lot 3 as well. I mentioned at the start of this webinar that the purpose of 24/7 in breaking up the tests into assay, instrument, and lots is to allow for you to compare and contrast tests. A very, very good way of doing this is our combine feature. Now, as it stands, looking at this chart, this could be semi-hard to read. So what might we do to make it easier to read and find the information we want? Well, let's say we want to look at CA125 for our lot 1. What I would do, quickly remove my lot 2 and lot 3. I still have each lot being highlighted with a different color. And if I want to focus in on just CA125, I can see I've got TSH here. All I do is click on TSH and it removes it. Now I can see the performance of 2 instruments running the same test and the same assay. If I was speaking to a manager or a supervisor and I want to send them that information, or I want to email this to somebody, it works exactly the same way as what it did with our individual charts. All we do is click on that print landscape button. It will download that chart in exactly how we've made it. So with those features turned on. Okay, just before we leave our Levy-Jennings, one last thing to show, and that is this button. The fixed SDI will actually alter our standard deviation scale, where I'll turn it back on just so we can all see that for sure. The standard deviation is always 0 to 3 and 0 to -3 for every chart. When I turn this to variable, what this is going to do is it's going to fit your SDI around your data within that date range. So in this case, it's going to 1.353, which means that our data is actually quite tight. We're doing quite well there. If I scroll down, we have 0.889, and it can also expand. In this case, with TSH, what you can see is rejected results that are actually outside our 3SD scale. What you can also see with this result, if we look at the bottom of the information, is the reagent lot number. This is a new feature that we've added in, that no longer do you have to just log your reagent lots with your events, but also your reagent lot number for each result that is used will be automatically pulled across in your upload of data if you're using automatic upload or semi-automatic upload. So you can see here we have a reagent lot of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this test. If I look back at a previous result, the reagent lot used was 1001. Okay, so I'm going to skip on then to our performance summary chart. So the performance summary chart is our peer group comparison chart. Now, this is a demo account, so it is using demo peer group. What we can see though is an individual chart for each lot, just like we got with our Levy Jennings. In this case, we have our SDI and CVI. We are not comparing to our own lab targets. We're actually comparing to peer group targets instead. So here we'll get a chart showing our desirable performance, acceptable, and borderline in the green shaded areas. If our performance is worse than our peer group, it will be in the outside in the red area. The dot will then indicate exactly what our performance is in comparison to our CVI and SDI. And beside each chart, we'll then get a table of statistics showing how many results were entered in March to April, the peer group, how many results they entered, the means, the SDs, the CVs, then how many labs contributed to this data, and our CVI and SDI. Like I said, this is demo peer group data. This is not representative of the data that you would find on Acusera 24.7 itself. You would find much more significant and more realistic SD and CV values. I'll get that then for each lot. And how our customers typically use this is they may look at it individually, or if they're having an issue with a test, or even if they're having an issue with 2 instruments, they might want to compare to your peer group and see, okay, well, how is the peer group comparison? A good way to do that is combining. By combining, we have all of the tests I picked on one chart. Now I'm only looking at lot 1 here, so I can turn on lot 2 and lot 3, and I can see my overall performance for each lot for each test. And remember, if I uncombine this, all charts are downloadable and printable. Okay, there we go. So with 1 page allocated to each chart. So the next chart I'm going to talk about is a new addition to Acusera 24.7. This is our weekly means chart. Now, it operates in exactly the same way as the other charts. We get an individual chart for each lot, for each test. At the moment, when you look at this, on the y-axis, what we have is our result concentration. On the x-axis, we have our dates along the bottom. I'm going to remove our event lines, and I'm going to show you how we intend you to use this. And that is to turn your weekly means on, remove your values, and what the weekly means is going to show us, if I hover over a data point, is the mean of all your results in that week. And you can see here it tells us how many results we had. We entered 5. Now, what if I want to evaluate just how much QC I ran, and I want to see exactly how often we're running QC each week across those months? If I turn on my weekly counts, this will show me exactly how much QC I ran, and I can clearly see from a supervisor or a manager point of view, we ran our QC 13 times in the 3rd week of March in comparison to the rest of March and April, where we're running it between 7 to 8 times. So as a manager, my thought process would be, why? Why are we running our QC nearly double the amount in this week compared to all the other weeks? So it allows for you to evaluate two things. One, the trending of your mean. Are you seeing a lot of drifting or a lot of shifts? And two, what is our stock usage? What is our QC usage? This can also be very useful for the likes of combining again. So if I combine this, once again, we're getting everything I picked. So if I look at my preview window, I have my CA125 for both instruments and my TSH. And I have picked only the high lot level. Within that then, I'm getting my means. And if I remove TSH, for CA125 for 1306 EC on two different instruments. And I can see they're achieving very different means consistently. So this may be something that we would need to investigate, because that different mean and that bias that's occurring between my instruments could have an impact on patient results. And that's the main thing here. That's what we're trying to reduce. Just to really reiterate this, once again, if we wanted, we can download this, print it out, email it to the relevant parties, or bring it with us to a meeting. And you'll have the data from when we've created it to the end date as well. So we're seeing from March to the end of April with when it was printed and the ability to sign it off. Okay, so we're going to move on then, and we're going to look at our homepage. One thing I would like to point out is that for any of you that are current Randox customers and you're using our Acusera controls, if you bring on Acusera 24.7, what is very good is the likes of our target system. So we have introduced recently our new improved targets, where if I want to set targets for a specific test, I go to targets, choose my tests here, and we have three different options. If I choose Randox assigned, now this is the demo account, so these are old lots, but if I choose Randox assigned and you're using new QC from us, you will automatically have your Randox targets load in to the software. You don't have to type anything, it will automatically load them for you. Now, like I said, this is the demo account, so at the moment there is none there. So if you have assay values for your instrument, for your control, it will automatically load them for you. There's nothing else you need to do. Now, if you want to assign your own targets, you can type these in using fixed. But what is good about 24/7 as well is that part of good lab practice is that we develop our own targets for our own lab. So if I was to use Randox assigned targets for now, then what I could do is I could go in and say, okay, I want 24/7 to look at my performance and automatically assign my ranges and targets based on that. I can go to schedule fixed cumulative. It's for the tests I've picked here. If I click add new and say, okay, at the end of November, I want you to look at my results, exclude my rejected results as well, because obviously if a result has been rejected, I'm not going to be running patient samples. So it shouldn't be included in my targets. Click save. And what 24/7 will do is it will look at the end of November at my targets by calculating all my results, looking and calculating a mean, calculating my SD ranges, and resetting my targets based on my performance. And remember, that is what is part of good lab practice. That's what we should be doing. Okay, so I'm going to continue on and I'm going to show you some reports. So the first report is our statistical report. So if we actually come out of here, and I'll create this for a panel instead. So we'll do that for our immunoassays. Go to our statistical report. You'll notice the same kind of interface is present on our reports as it was in our charts. And that's to make things simple and easy for you to understand. So if we choose a date range then from March to April, selected and all is where we're deciding, do I want to make this report for just the tests I selected or for every test in our account by selecting all? Then we have world and group. This is a unique function with 24/7 where you have the ability to have the world peer group, everybody using 24/7 across the world using Randox lots, or group, where we can have a private peer group. So if you're part of a lab chain or a private hospital group, and each hospital or lab has their own 24/7 account, you can do comparisons within your group. So you can swap at the click of a button as to which peer group you want. Okay, let's click enter and see what we get. So whenever I create this report, what we're going to see is our assays, the lot numbers within each test, and I can click and drag and make these columns as wide as I want, the instruments within that test, and the methods that we're using. Now, if I wanted to change the order of these, what I can do is click on either of these buttons. So if I click on instrument, it will sort my account or my report by instrument. If I click on method, it will sort my report by the methods that were used. I prefer to look at this via assay, so I'm going to leave it like that. And then what we're going to see here is under participant, this is the lab's data. We're looking at March to April. Under count, this is how many results we've actually entered between March and April. Our means then, our SDs, our CVs, our SDI, and our CVI. Now our SDI and CVI at this point is comparing to the peer group. What is useful here is that what if I want to keep my SDI beside my CVI? Well, you can do that. Our reports and charts are totally interactive, and I can actually change the order of how this looks. So I can completely click and drag everything I want. Then cumulative, this is going to be from whenever we first started entering results for that lot, for that test, which means we can look at the mean, SD, etc. And we can actually compare this month's performance or 2 months compared to our normal performance. So we can see, is our SD getting bigger? Is our CV getting bigger? Is there an issue with our current testing compared to our usual testing? And on the same report, you then get your peer group data. So you can compare to your peer group at exactly the same time. You're getting everything in one report. Take it one step further. We actually allow for metrics here. By clicking on that button, we get our bias. We get our sigma scores automatically calculated and our total error. We get that cumulatively and from our peer group. So it's another way that you can monitor your performance. And we have our target values as well. All of our reports are downloadable in PDF and Excel. So if I download this in PDF, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to look exactly like what we've seen on the software. All of those metrics that we had decided upon, with when it was printed, who it was printed by, so who was logged in, so we have full traceability of that, and the signature column as well. Okay, so I'm going to jump quickly to our uncertainty of measurement, and I'm going to show this. Let's say we calculate this for 6 months, as some of you may do, for every test in our account, and 24/7 will automatically calculate that instantly, giving you for each test and lot your uncertainty of measurement values in terms of your intra-precision, so your within run precision, your inter-assay precision, your between run precision, your uncertainty of measurement is calculated, and the expanded form, which is the form that you're more likely to use. One of our new updates is that we are aware that some ISO inspectors are now requiring, and some labs are required to provide the uncertainty of their calibrator. If you want to provide this, we now allow for this and include it in our calculation. To do this, it's quite simple. You get that information from your IFU for your calibrator or from the manufacturer of the calibrator themselves, and you enter it in by going to QC test configuration, and we have the calibrator value there. Once you know it, we type it in, click save. And if I go back to my uncertainty of measurement, create this again, now you can see FSH has the uncertainty of the calibrator included in the calculation. And we know that ISO 15189 dictates that you must calculate this, review it, and document it. Well, 24/7 has just done that for you. So this helps you review your uncertainty of measurement. It's a clear documentation process with when it was printed and who it was printed by, and the ability to sign off. Okay, so another report that is very useful is our exception report. The exception report is extremely useful, and a lot of our customers find this very powerful in terms of managing their QC. So we're going to look at a specific month. Let's look at March, for example. We're going to look at every test in our account and click enter. What this is going to produce is a list of all of our tests broken down by assay, instrument, and lot. It's going to show how many results we entered for each one within 2 SDs then that we had, how many results within 2 to 3 SDs during that date range, and greater than 3. Now this is very useful, but we can make it even better. If we click once on a heading, it will sort by ascending order. If I click twice, it will sort by descending order. And now, very quickly, I have a list of which tests in my account I had the worst performers. So I can see here for total bilirubin, I had 40% of my overall results in the month of March outside 3SD from my target. So let's take it even one step further. Let's download it in Excel, open our file. Come on, sorry, my computer's taking its time. Okay, so whenever we open this, you'll find if I zoom out, this is our report. I'll zoom once more so you can see that is the totality of our report. It's exactly the same information we got on our exception report on Acusera 24.7, but we said we're going to take it one step further. How do we do that? Well, if we select all and go to filter, let's say I only want to look at those results for a specific instrument. So I only want to look at my immunoassays, for example. So I'll choose my immunoassay machines. It keeps the same sorting. And then let's say, oh, I only want to see the ones that have results outside 3SDs. And there we go. I can see immediately which tests are underperforming for my immunoassays and which ones are the worst. In this case, it's for FSH. Ran on an architect where it had 4 results outside 3SD, which made up 13% of our overall results that month. This could then be sent in an email. You could even print this out if you wanted to and bring it with you to a meeting where you may want to discuss your QC performance. So now we're on to our monthly report. Our monthly report is perfect for evaluating performance over a long time. So again, if we choose several months here, we'll go with March to August. I'll choose all and click enter. I'm going to increase my items per page in this case. What you're going to get is for each test, so I've selected all, so every test in my account, is the instrument and the assay, each lot within that test. Then we're going to see for the months that I've chosen, the means that we achieved each month, how many results we entered each month, the SDs, and the CVs. Now, this can be very, very useful because it can give you a really quick top-down snapshot of how you've performed. An example of this, if we look at lot number 111UN, I can really quickly see we had issues in the month of May, where we had a CV of 18.54 and an SD of 7.944, which is a drastic increase compared to all the other months. And this was only seen in our normal concentration range, so our normal lot level. We're not seeing that in our high lot level, nor in our low. Once again, if you want, you can download this in Excel or PDF to continue doing more calculations or more analysis. So if I click on PDF and download this, we'll then get that report in PDF format with when it was printed and who it was printed by. But if I were to even look at this in Excel, it might provide a better breakdown for some people. You may prefer this in Excel format, where we get each assay and instrument broken down with the lots, with their means, counts, SDs, and CVs. And obviously we can filter this and make it look however you want in terms of how you need it to. Okay, so I'm going to return back to 24/7, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about our daily QC reviewing processes. One of those is our alarms. Now, our alarms is going to show any results that have been alerted or rejected in the past 7 days. So this is one result here. It has been rejected. Here's the rules that were broken. And what we can see on the right-hand side then is comments. So this is a way that if we run our QC in the morning, your staff can run the alarms and quickly apply comments. So apply that comment. Now, if I was a lab analyst, I would only see the standard comment column. A supervisor then can come along and they will be able to see the reviewed columns and they can apply this as well. If I was a manager or if I was an analyst and I want to investigate this further, I would see that TSH has failed all 3 lots. So I'm going to want to look at this and see why that's the case and see if there's anything going on with this test. To do that, I double click. That will open up the result history for TSH. Now, from here, I can see when each result was uploaded, who uploaded them. So that's based on who's logged in, based on the username. And when I hover over a data point, I can see all the information about that result. All of it. So it's any rules it's broken, any comments applied, its SDI, and its reagent lot number as well. From here, I can then see the history of this result. This is a new function that we have added where it allows for full traceability of all actions in the account. So if I go and look at 1304EC, I can see who created it and when through auditing of that result, who updated it, it was me again, and then who updated it again, it was me just a moment ago, adding a standard comment and a review comment. What this means is that if somebody is trying to add other people's initials or falsify information, you will know that. You can look this up at any time. Okay. What is useful about this as well is say you are doing training runs like this run here, and let's say this is a training run and I want that run to be rejected. What I can do is double click, choose my drop down, and I can actually forcibly reject or alert or accept results. So if I click reject, click save, you'll see that this will be updated in just a moment to be forcibly rejected. So this means if you're training staff or anything like that, if you're doing validation runs and you don't want them to be included in your statistics, you can do this process and forcibly remove those results from being included in your statistics. Okay, so if we then continue on, we're going to go back to our alarms here. And I'm going to look at the data review report. This is really useful for everyday QC management. We find a lot of staff and in a lot of labs will use this, where each staff member will say have a duty of looking after a specific machine for the day. This is how they can use this. Because let's say we come into the lab, and I'm going to pick a specific day. We'll say the 19th. So we're in the lab on the 19th of April. We run our QC. And on that day, we then need to look after a specific instrument. Okay, so I look after, let's say, the C311B. Should probably pick a better day because I think everything's going to be reviewed. Okay, I'll pick a better day. Give me one moment. So we'll look at the 29th of March instead. Okay, perfect. So yes, we look after the C311B. Okay, so I'm going to filter this data for just the C311B. And what happens is I run my QC in the morning. Once my QC is done, I run my data review report. I then filter for that instrument and I see all the results that instrument has had. Okay, now I'm lucky. Everything has been accepted. But what I can do is I can actually filter this report also by rule violations. Now there's nothing for this instrument, but if I turn this off, then I can see where those rule violations were. If a result has been rejected or alerted, based on multi-rules or performance limits. So this means that if I run this, I can then go in and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I have noted this, and it's for 12S. That's the rule that was broken. If I click this and click save, now you'll see that my review has been added to that result, and I can see who reviewed it and when. If you want to speed this process up, we have allowed for this, where we're going to have all here, and let's say with my C311B, everything's been accepted, so nothing's been broken. All my multi-rules and performance limits are set up as they should be. So therefore, I know everything's okay. So if I want these all to be reviewed quickly, what I can do is click here, select a comment, and let's say I've reviewed them. It will apply to every result in the page, up to 50 at a time. Click save. And now, if I go into my C311B again, all of those results have been reviewed. Now, if you're worried about that and you don't want that practice to be happening in your lab, very, very quick check to see if the people are doing that. And that is by looking at who reviewed it. So I reviewed this result at 9:52 today. The second result, the exact same minute and second. So therefore, you know that I use that function. We can then download this report in Excel or PDF. So if it's your job that you must have all of your results that you inputted in each day kept as a record, you can download this, where each 2 rows here highlights one result. So the lot, the instrument, the analyte that is testing for, the date and time of that result, what was the result value, and its STI. You can also see its status as to whether or not it was accepted, alerted, or rejected. Any result that has been reviewed will have a tick with the initials of who reviewed it. And at the bottom of the page, you'll have when it was printed, who was the user that was logged in when they printed it, and the ability to sign off. Okay, so the last section I want to show is our auditing section. Now, our auditing section is an improvement on what we've seen before with our individual result auditing. This is a more group auditing where we can see what each person is doing in the account. So if I go to auditing and I then look at my results, let's say I'm going to look at the last week and click search, it's going to show everything that's been done in the account in regards to results. So whether or not what results have been created, what results have been updated, so comments, if they've been edited in terms of the value themselves, if the status has been changed to alerted, accepted, or rejected. And then we have deleted. So if I click on deleted, I can see all the results that were deleted. I can see when it happened. And I can see who's been doing it. I've been a bad person. I shouldn't be deleting results, of course, but the option is there. You can delete results if and only if you're an admin. Okay, so I'm going to give a really quick overview of that just before we finish in terms of what it looks like with different users. So if I go to user access control, this will show my user management page. And if I click add new, you'll then get the ability to add a new user. And any of our customers can do this. You can add and delete users as you want. So let's say I have a new user. I add in their first name, their last name. I can then choose a language. So they will be able to view 24/7 in a different language than their other colleagues if they speak another language. Then with 24/7, we have 5 roles available. We have our admin, our coordinator, custom, manager, and user. Now, an admin is the highest access, where I'm able to do everything. So if I click on admin and we look at configuration here, click my drop down, you can see as an admin, I'm able to view, create, update, and delete everything in the account. Whereas as a user, I'm unable to do any of those things. So this means that we can lock it down. Now, if you want to be very specific, you can choose custom, and you can actually decide exactly what that person can do. So I can decide, oh, I want this person to actually be able to access instrument configurations. And I want them to be able to view, create, update, and delete statistical reports. So once I've done choosing what each person can do, I would click save, or what this person can do, I would click save. They will then receive an email to this email address with a username and password to log in, and they can start using the software. The last user I want to finish on is the coordinator. The coordinator is a special role for lab chains and lab groups, or if you have a manager who's in charge of different sites and each site has their own account, this person, instead of seeing this view at the top, will have an option to choose different labs. I'm going to show you this now. So I'm going to log out and log in with a coordinator login. So with the coordinator login, what will happen, if I turn on QC test here, is you will have this little people icon at the top. And if we select this under group, you can then select what labs you want to see on your homepage. What this effectively means is I can have lab A, B, C, D, etc. There's no limit. And I'll see all the tests they run in each account. And within that, I can then pick and choose which ones I want to compare, to create reports and charts with, as I normally would as if it's one account. So I can compare multiple sites from one login. And I change what labs I want to see by simply selecting the checkboxes. So if I choose training demo 1 here, then our comparison group, this is where we can change our peer group on the fly as well. So if I want to say compare training demo 1, 2, and 3 to, in terms of peer group data, I would then choose 4, 5, and 6, then click save. And if I refresh my page, now I have training demo 1's accounts. And the filters and the panels all work exactly the same. So I can still filter by immunoassay. Okay. Thank you all for coming to our Acusera 24/7 webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them into the chat now, and we will reply to them, probably via email, as our webinar is finishing in 1 minute. I hope you find it interesting, and yeah, I hope you all have a good day. Thank you very much.